Hello and welcome to the next how-to video on this channel. Today we'll be expanding out from the financial core which we built in the last video, and I'll show you how to realistically taper your development away from your core. I'll be building in a North American style and using a lot of modern residential mixed-use towers and not really a lot of outer buildings. That being said, the distribution of development along major avenues and transit lines is a basically universal concept. I've gone ahead and listed the mods which I've used, which are the bare bones essentials of building placement. My full mod collection can be found down below. I've also listed some of the creators behind many of the assets I place in this city, and I hope you enjoyed the build process and find the tips useful. So I'm going to start off by placing some parks throughout the city. These aren't detailed or functional, but play the role that they need to for this video. The park here leads up to the diagonal avenue and offers a great view of the Legacy Tower from Chicago. Now I'm going to start building by placing the first residential development along our waterfront. This development is likely very sought after and expensive, as it is right next to the water and downtown. I've placed a large condominium building next to the park. It's important to have some residential buildings make a mark on your skyline, especially in more modern cities. I've also expanded the office zoning along the highway, as living next to the highway would be very loud. However, one block away from the highway, I continued to add residential buildings along the diagonal road. As I continue to place the tallest residential buildings in this city, you'll note that some have podiums or bases, and that I added a podium to some. Podiums are important because they connect the building to the urban fabric of the street and the city as a whole through their commercial and their common areas. You'll also note that the majority of high density development that I've placed here runs along this major tram road, and you'll continue to see me line major roads with higher development, with the tallest buildings going on intersections between those major corridors of development. When planning your development corridors, you should try and pass your transit system through them. By now you've seen me add several condos from the procedural objects menu. In preparation for my upcoming Vancouver-Toronto Mix project, I've been creating custom condos using the mod. These custom condos allow me to add variety and employ more control over my skyline and the height of the buildings within it. What I've done here is use several of these buildings to create a sort of complex. When you make complexes such as these, it's often worth it to insert small access roads that function as entrances for visitors and delivery drivers. I've also placed a group of 3 condos along the waterfront, and right behind them a 4-story townhouse complex. Development continues at a near downtown level along the waterfront in key avenues, but don't be afraid to have it rapidly fall off into shorter buildings, especially in areas which have only recently started upzoning. As we move further away from the downtown, development will generally go where land values are high, such as near parks or on the waterfront. It's often worth taking a look at the land value panel to realistically lay out your city. Now I'm going to add a stadium, as I've built this city in a very North American style, so it almost needs at least one stadium to be realistic. I've also moved the tram terminus to in front of the stadium, which is the beautiful FedEx Forum asset by King Leonard. Now you have to remember that development doesn't move away from your core in an entirely linear manner, and you'll have heightened development around landmarks such as stadiums or transit hubs. So I've placed some increased development around the stadium, mainly residential with some commercial. These developments would benefit from the transit connections and traffic flow generated by the stadium. I also added a park for the residents of these developments. Nowadays, a lot of development for buildings, especially residential, comes in the form of multiple buildings. So it's important to have your share of residential complexes, some being high-rises but mostly low-rise. I'm just finishing off lining the waterfront with expensive mid-rise residential buildings. This sort of development along the water would continue into the suburbs. I've also placed some offices along the highway to fill that undesirable spot and offer local jobs and incentives for the development in our station district. I've finished filling in the area between the highway and the water, and you'll note that at many points my zoning overlap. While it is good to maintain certain things in set areas, I like blurring the lines a little bit at the border to keep the transitions realistic. I filled this area up here with a few more office skyscrapers, and while the view from the highway is nice, the transition into the mountain isn't all that I would have liked. But it doesn't really fit into the scope of the video, and transitions such as that are a lot of work. Now I'm creating my second denser area away from the core by this train station. I've placed some residential condos, some office towers, and some hotels. This area is quite economically important, and a lot of traffic passes through here, connecting the suburbs to downtown, both by road and by train. So a lot of development here is basically a no-brainer. I've expanded the borders of my downtown a bit and placed a lot of offices, including some towers that make a mark on my skyline. I like doing this because having parts of your skyline be further away from your core adds a lot of depth to that point of view. Then I just filled in the remainder with the same levels of residential commercial mixed use as I have closer to the water. And I hope that about sums up how to move away from your downtown realistically. And as always, if you have any questions, I'll happily answer them down below. I'm sorry for the slow upload schedule, but hopefully I'll pick up some speed for the next video on this channel, where I'll start building a city that is basically a mix of Toronto and Vancouver. So subscribe if you want to catch that or any of the how-to videos I'll release in the future. Thank you for watching.